Welcome to the Jungle, brought to you by Liger Partners. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist and Dojo Master at Liger Partners. I'm joined this morning by Jeff Bond, and Jeff is a man after my own heart. He doesn't have just one thing going on. He's got multiple things going on. Some of us say we're distracted. One day I talked about being a serial entrepreneur, and they said you're actually parallel because you have a couple of things going on. So your work with AppBarry and that mobile app development company.
Mobile and web apps.
Yep. And web apps, okay.
Yep.
And then also you have your own podcast called Chat with Leaders.
Correct.
All
yeah,
right.
Thank you so much. And Dojo Master. I like that too.
Yeah. Well, the company is founded out of Napoleon Dynamite, the movie.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Whitney was telling me about that. Very cool.
Yeah. And so one of the characters is the Dojo Master.
Yeah.
So I'm the Dojo Master. I only ever got to my white belt in karate, so I don't really think that maybe I deserve it.
Business with a personality. That's the way to do it.
That's it. Well, it's a fun brand, and if you're a marketing company, you get to own it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So AppBarry. So let's talk first about AppBarry, and then we'll move over to Chat with Leaders. So
sounds great.
What does AppBarry do, and kind of where do you guys focus?
So AppBarry is a software consultancy here in Atlanta. We build custom web and mobile apps. So people come to us with brand new ideas, or they need to extend their software within their business environment. And so that's what we do, from scratch type software or integrations or cloud migrations. And so we work kind of across all different technologies, all different industries. And so every day is unique and every project is unique.
Yeah. So give me an example. Is it mostly like internal things, like, so, maybe for their sales team, or is it something they're pushing out to their customers? What would be an example of that?
A lot of the times it could be an internal facing piece of software. And I would say more times than not, we're dealing with business software across various departments. The average employee uses about 8 different apps just to do their job effectively, which sometimes
he must be looking behind the scenes at Liger.
Yeah, right. Well, we all adopt new software versus sometimes starting with a custom tailored piece of software that kind of extends into all different departments and business cases. And so a lot of the times we're thinking about the entire uniqueness of the business life cycle and building software specific to that business, so that it can touch on all those things and kind of reduce the stack and the noise of all the software applications that are out there.
Yeah. I talk about making things happen automatically.
Right. Well, automating everything is kind of the thing these days, right? Because of the pace of technology and how quickly we move. So DevOps and automation for testing and deployment life cycles, getting code off of the computer all the way into the release cycles and building these continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines. That's a really big deal these days in order to get your product to market quickly.
Yes.
And so we talk to a lot of our clients about starting there, building those good practices into your software. And that way you can ship quickly and learn quickly and continue to iterate as you go and build.
Yeah, I may have, because you and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I'm a recovering technologist.
I love that word,
so
recovering.
So I ran development shows back in the day.
Sure.
So talk about being able to get something out, the iteration is so important, because you don't often know at the beginning, is this exactly what I want it to be, but being able to go back and make a change to it and see, what works and doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. So talk to me about the difference between, and sort of breaking this down for the person who may not know, right? Layman's terms. So there's apps,
correct,
responsive design,
right,
website,
right.
What are those three? What's your ethos, like belief between why I might do one versus the other?
Yeah, absolutely. And the vernacular is important because a lot of the times it's words by association. And so when you say app, a lot of people think, oh, it's just like a silly mobile app that really has no kind of business use or function. It's maybe a game that you play or something like that. But applications can really be more the vernacular in the business world too, because there's so many different business applications. Think about how you collaborate, on apps like Slack or Teams or things like that, or how you share documents on things like, Google Drive or things like that,
right?
And then the CRMs and the HRIS systems and so forth. And so there's lots of different applications that are out there that can be found on your mobile device, on any tablet, on any desktop, that's maybe accessible in the cloud, hosted in the cloud, or on some sort of physical server. And so when you talk about applications, it's not just silly mobile apps, for instance.
It's just not Word with Friends.
Right. It's not just words. It can be,
right.
But it's a multitude.
Okay.
So sometimes people relate more to software as a whole, but that's maybe more of the formal, language.
Yeah.
Responsive web design is maybe you're not building an app that's specifically targeted to a device, but that when you open it on any web browser, it has a very similar experience to where if you were on a fully a full desktop to be able to use that application. So, and then what was the third that you...
Well, just what we'll see with companies is talking about they're not sure what they need to build.
Right.
So we're talking to them about, typically we're starting off with like a brochure website, but they eventually want it to make money for them in some way.
Sure.
So the way for that to make money is generating leads, or they're actually able to sell something on the back end of it, or it's providing information. There's some way of it being more than just a pretty face, right? So the conversation around, do we just build a website? Does it also need to be responsive? And then when do we jump over into, because app world feels specialized, right? Like you've kind of taken that next step and kind of knowing, and I've seen people go too far one way or the other. Right. Yeah, they build an app for something that really appropriately would have just been a website.
Agree with that.
Just a brochure, and like, let's not spend the time and energy and effort.
Yeah.
And then people who try to make a website do way too much, So, so tell me about kind of typical engagement for you guys. Where do you like to come in? Are you in the scoping? Do you want someone to have brought you plans? Like, where do you kind of fit? And then how do they engage with you guys to get something done?
So we kind of operate under two essential models. The first one is, it's a brand new idea. Maybe it's on a napkin or in someone's head, and we need to unpack that and do the requirements gathering, come up with a technical scoping, do wireframes, and really build out the application and estimate to get the green light from the client. And we love that. We love being able to build fresh new ideas and help actualize the challenges that they're trying to tackle, that our clients are trying to tackle. Another instance is we work with a lot of clients that maybe they have an engineering team built and they have software that they need to extend, and maybe it's a new piece of software or a new feature rather within the software. And so we might come in, get access to their existing code base, and then build out those features separate to the projects that they're currently working on, kind of more as a staff augmentation or consulting type of engagement. I guess a tertiary type thing would be if they have a multitude of software applications within their environment and they need to integrate all of those. So we see a lot of those challenges too, because the stack might be pretty fat in terms of the amount of software that they're using, but no department is kind of speaking to the next, and so the whole business life cycle might not necessarily be efficient. And so coming in and helping with those efficiencies.
Yeah, and so is your approach typically to build like a dashboarding system on top of that, or to make those systems talk to each other, and like do handoffs? Yeah.
So a lot of the time, we build out a lot of dashboards to be able to monitor, the way the software is being used, the data, the reporting to the users, but also the handoffs and the calls to kind of one application to another. So for instance, if you're selling something, right, and you write a purchase order or an agreement, and then that flows into business operations and, the back end accounting and HR and all these different systems that need to speak to one another. A lot of the times, because of these disparate systems, that's just not happening. And maybe there's a paper process, right? And so we need to come in and say, there's greater efficiencies to be had here that can really reduce your costs and speed you up in your business life cycle. And so we like solving those types of problems as well.
Yeah, and that's an important point. Companies will, I see all the time, because I do operational work also. So I work with a company around kind of their operations and their flows. And spending some money to fix that, like in the long run. You know, it's that thing that you're doing over and over again, and you just don't pay attention to it. But the repetition is either slowing down your process or, you know, pushing out your receivables, you know, something, you know. So if you
invoicing process.
Yeah, you're gonna have to spend a little money here, but once you do, the long-term kind of payoff of that is really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what we like. We like being kind of these investigators, problem solvers, solving problem. You know, sometimes when you're building a product, it's cool to be part of a product development company as well, because maybe you have a mission behind what you're doing and you're really attached to it. You live with the project a little bit longer to support it and extend it and see it build, and you're kind of part of that team. But we really like the consulting environment because we're serving our clients, we're actualizing their goals, we're helping them, you know, solve actual problems. And it's just fun because there's a variety of projects as well.
Right. So you have that, and then we'll take a right turn. Yep. And now you have a podcast.
I do.
Yeah, called Chat with Leaders.
Yeah, not as sophisticated as yours.
Oh, don't worry about it. I started this a long time ago.
I don't have Isaac, our sound engineer back here, videographer.
You know, I was doing podcasting before I knew it was even cool. So I was like, I did it out of fear.
Yeah.
So I had to start. I was told by a marketing agency back in 2010 that I needed to start standing on stages.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't stand on stages. That's not my thing. And so I started the podcast as a way to practice. It was really easy because we weren't doing video then. It wasn't
live, probably.
And I would record it. And if I didn't like the interview, I just never published it. So it was
never
really
see the light of
easy.
day.
They never saw the day, right? So it was a good way to kind of practice that piece. But talk to me about, you know, the idea for that. You know, is it a creative itch you wanted to scratch? Like, where does kind of that fit in your world?
So I've always been interested in leadership and podcasts. And I was talking to one of my mentors, Tim Smith, who's the executive partner at Stratfield Consulting here in Atlanta. Okay. Yep. And we were just talking about, in the midst of the pandemic, this is when it all got started in March, how are we forging ahead faithfully amidst these unprecedented challenges? And we were just kind of spitballing on this and talking about how we were kind of delving into our own leadership and the struggles we were having and how we were overcoming them, the plans that we had in place. And we were like, wow, this could be a great conversation to record and share with people. And better yet, to bring in other leaders to share their perspectives and wisdom to help inspire others to really like get through this, because it's an unprecedented time. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And it's completely disruptive to all of our businesses and all industries in one way or the other. And so the idea was birthed. I reached out to another friend of mine, Chris LaFay, who owns a content creation SEO company.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know Chris. That's right.
And Tim Smith. That name sounds familiar.
You probably know Tim too.
Yeah, I know two Tim Smith, so it depends on which one.
That's right.
It could be a third.
And we all work together.
Okay.
Yes, that was confusing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I reached out to Chris because he has a real knack for content creation. He had all the resources, and I trust him implicitly like I do Tim. And I said, hey, do you want to be on board with this? And we can all kind of work on getting this up together. So we quickly started spinning up our website and figuring out our, guest lists and our strategy, our release cycles, and how we were going to do it. And this was all new. We had to buy microphones, cameras.
There's no equipment purchase required, is there, Isaac?
Not at all.
So minor investment to get it started. And, we got it started pretty quickly. I think by the end of March, we were recording episodes and talking to executives, pastors, motivational speakers, authors. And it really just started this cycle because people had time. People had time to sit down and talk about leadership. And
they needed to.
Yeah. And I believe that leadership is something that is a lifelong journey. You never have it all figured out.
No, right.
And so learning and development and sharing perspectives and being vulnerable, it's so important in order to be able to, work within the good times and the bad.
Yeah.
And there's such a responsibility of leaders for the people that look up to them to guide everyone in the right direction. Yeah. And so we wanted to reach out to just remarkable people and share their perspectives, which are all vastly different. Everyone has a little bit something different to say. There's common themes, but it really has been an inspiration to me. And it's also been a great conversation starter for our business, for AppBarry. We kind of looked at it as a servant-minded opportunity to serve the community and also serve our guests, to build their brand equity, give them a valuable piece of content to share with their communities. But these are all people that are centers of influence. They know other people that have software challenges and, that are running their businesses that could benefit from AppBarry services. And so, in the midst of physical distancing, I feel more socially connected as a result of this. And it's helping me have great conversations with remarkable people that are also potential customers or referral streams. And so, and again, it was all based on serving the community and spreading positive, inspiring leadership. But it's turned into so much more.
Yeah, and it's one of our, as we do marketing for companies, it's one of our favorite things that a company will choose to do,
right? Because
they all know something in their little niche market, like wherever it is, whatever they do, they know it very well. They know other people who know how to talk about it.
Right.
It's easier to get the message across in that conversation than it is in any copy you would ever create or any ad or any of those types of things.
Right.
And it creates such compelling content you can use kind of over and over again. So
right.
we talk about, taking content. Most people spend 80% of their time creating it and 20% of their time promoting it.
Right.
And you really need to reverse that.
Yeah.
It's 80% of your time promoting it, 20% creating. And a podcast gives you so many components and pieces to pull out.
It does.
And regrettably, we're going to talk now for 25 minutes or so. And during that 25 minutes, we'll only say 2 minutes of really interesting stuff.
Well, that's what I say. If you can get one little meaningful idea, to just jump in and do it, and that the percentages that you just gave it, a lot of people are afraid to create good content or to be vulnerable because they're afraid to be judged, right? What are people going to think about this? Yeah. And like you said, humble beginnings, the process is just getting started and doing it, and then just getting a little bit better as you go, evaluating yourself and say, what can I be doing better? I end each one of my podcasts by asking my guests, what do you think we could have done differently or better? And a lot of the times they just self-reflect and say, oh, well, I could have done this or I could have done that. I was like, oh, what could I do better? I want this to be a great experience. But just like this is live, this is authentic, and people want authenticity. They want from the heart. They want to be inspired by stories and things that are real, not things that have been constructed and carefully crafted and manipulated afterwards. And so you have to put it out there, and you can't be afraid of how people are going to be perceiving you. You just have to put valuable content out there that you feel like is serving people, and then evaluate as you go. Yeah. You know what? And if it never goes anywhere, you can always scrap it. But
absolutely.
But hey, I think it takes a little bit of faithfulness over time to see that grow and the momentum building, and I'm seeing that. It's not an overnight sensation. You don't need
There's
to be.
no such thing.
You don't need to go viral.
Right.
Just do something because it's on your heart.
If you do, it's probably for a bad reason.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
So,
because you're serving yourself.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like life has a lot more meaning when you're not the most important person in it.
Yeah.
And this is a show about our guests.
Right.
We're giving them a platform to share the inspiring things they're doing to serve themselves, their teams, and their communities wisely. But it's inspiring other people to do the same. And I think that as we come out of this pandemic of 2020 and this crisis that we're in, it's going to take people banding together, inspiring one another, working together, and aligning on humanity and compassion and empathy and vulnerability and all the things that it takes to be a good leader to move forward.
Yeah. Well, and so my feedback, right, I like the idea that you're doing it. What's interesting, because I've taken businesses through 97, 2001, and 2008.
Yeah.
So I've been through all three of those, right? And what's void right now is leadership.
Right.
And the business owners that I've talked with are filling that void. So if we're not getting it out of the churches, out of the politicians, out of any other, even out of like the home, right? Like there's so many people who are not.
It's a lack of accountability.
Yeah. And so business owners, almost to much of a degree, have had to fill that role. Like they have become the person that everyone's looking to. And honestly, when this was first going on, none of us knew what was happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, there's no sign. I can't tell you anything. I said, until there's better news, that's all we know, right? So it's a good time to have those conversations, because this group of people who are the business leaders who are kind of surviving these businesses through are taking on an interesting and unexpected burden, right? It's like not necessarily what they signed up for, right?
Exactly.
I was going to start a business so people could make money. Right now, there's a lot of other things that they're kind of being looked to and responsible for, which is not necessarily how or why they would have signed up.
And it's a good challenge, I think. Leadership is a responsibility, and whether you like it or not, if you're identified as a leader, and look, we all have it in us to be leaders. I think you make such a great point that maybe we're void of, leadership that you would traditionally look to on a national scale or political scale or, religious organizations. I think at the end of the day, you look at everybody's opportunity to lead, and they might be considered ordinary leaders in the grand scheme of things, but they can do extraordinary things by influencing even just one person within their organization or leading their family well. That's one of the most unique leadership roles that we have. In fact, the only unique role, because anyone can lead an organization just as well, if not better, than any of us do. And it's only a temporary seat anyways. We're keeping it warm for the next person. But, to be a father or mother to your children, or a good spouse or a good friend, a good family member, nobody else can do that. Nobody else has that title because we're born into it. And so I think leadership is something we can all develop in, whether we have a title or we don't.
No, agreed. And that's a really good point. One that a lot of company owners miss is that there is an end to your company. There will be an exit. You'll retire, you'll sell it, it'll be, it'll collapse, whatever it is, there is an end, and you have to plan for that. On the personal side, that you're there, right? So that's a really good one. Well, good. So Chat with Leaders, everybody, where is it? Is it everywhere, I assume?
So it's on all the podcast outlets like Apple or any of the major outlets. You can go on to chatwithleaders.com, and it has links to all of our... You
actually were able to get that URL?
I was, Well, that's amazing. How it was born. Yeah, seriously. I mean,
that should not have been available.
It should not have. I looked through so many different ideas, and to buy a domain is so complicated these days because people just buy them up. But and I'd reach out to people and say, I view you as a great leader. I'd love to have you on Chat with Leaders. It's almost like an instant compliment, right? So
I can't believe that domain was available.
Oh man, we were just blessed to be able to find it. And so chatwithleaders.com.
That's nice.
It really was. And then to learn more about AppBarry, it's AppBarry.com. And of course, we have all our social media outlets. We're heavy on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that. So
nice. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So you've been listening to The Jungle. I'm Eric Holtzclaw. We've been talking today with Jeff Bond from AppBarry and Chat with Leaders, not Chat. Chat with Leaders.
I'm just a good chap.
So you can find all of his information on our website. And thanks for listening in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.